Today we are in Karen Hospital because of one woman of impact. This is none other than the co-founder of Karen Hospital and currently the chairperson of the hospital's board, Dr. Betty Muthoni Gikonyo, who has been nominated for the East Africa Women Excellence Awards under the Healthcare Trailblazer category. Let's find out more on why she was nominated and her impact in the healthcare in our country. My name is Faith Kaulu and welcome to yet another episode of Shivolution, a segment sponsored by the East African Women of Excellence Awards. Karibu.
I'm a medical doctor by training and specialization in children heart diseases, which is pediatric cardiology. And I've been practicing, as a doctor, for the last, over 40 years as a heart specialist, but much longer, even as a general doctor. I'm a mother of three, two adult, yes, young men, and I would say, and my daughter, I'm also a grandmother of 7 children, and I'm also I'm a wife, to Dr. Dan Gikonyo. Yes, yeah. So as for family, I'm very thankful to God, that our daughter is the one who is currently running the hospital, Juliet Wamaida Nyaga, and also our son is a cardiologist and also working here, and the other one is working, pursuing other interests elsewhere, and it's a great blessing from God that allows the children whom we have nurtured and who we have worked with for a long time now to take up the mantle of running the hospital. Currently I'm a chairman of the board of the Karen Hospital, and apart from that I'm also a director of the Heart to Heart Foundation, and I am a Christian, and I worship at the Lavington United Church. Little young Betty was born in the village, a village called Kiamafara. It is in Nyeri County, Madera constituency, and Kiamafara is a small village, 3 miles, or about 5 kilometers from Karatina. So Karatina was our city as we grew up. So I was born, just before the emergency. So I am one of the children who experienced and lived in a village. I think your generation talk about shags, but don't really know the realities of a village where it's really almost like a small concentration camp where many families live together, and where we, our parents, were literally, prisoners, because they could not move without permission or without moving in a group. I went to school at Kiamavara Primary School up to class 7, and I really enjoyed my childhood as it was during those days, that you are fetching firewood, you are fetching water from the river, you are going farming, rather digging, and tending after crops. So the normal life, of a village, girl. That's how I grew up until I finished class 7, and I was admitted at the Alliance Girls High School, where I pursued my Form 4 and A-level exams. My vision or my dream of a book of being a doctor is well captured in a book I've written called The Girl Who Dared to Dream. And the book traces at the age of 7 years, I was still able to vocalize and tell my primary school teacher that I want to be a doctor, and that in future, I would like to be like my older brother who was training to be a doctor. I thank God that vision, came to fruition, and the guidance that I got from primary school, in ensuring that I get to a, I get, to a good high school, I cannot underrate the amount of teaching that those teachers, put, and the effort that they put to make sure that we could come from a village school, to a national school like the Alliance Girls. Alliance Girls, I also got guidance about what subjects to take so that I could be a doctor, and I again thank the teachers there for that guidance, and I had a good time in high school, and I still remember I have good memories of my 6 years at the Alliance Girls High School. So that's where where I began, and and the journey before entering medical school at the University of Nairobi, where I trained as a doctor. And after graduation, I was, in 1975, I was posted to Nakuru Provincial Hospital for my internship and medical officer. By that time, I was already married to one, Dr. Dan Gikonyo, and we had a son, and thereafter we had a daughter and another son before we're proceeding back to the University of Nairobi to train as a children's doctor, a pediatrician, that's a general pediatrician, and worked at the Kenyatta National Hospital before again proceeding to the United States of America, in a state called Minnesota, in a town called Minneapolis. At the University of Minnesota, I trained as a children's heart doctor, pediatric cardiologist. So I'm a heart specialist by training, and we were there for some time, but decided to come back home and and serve our people and practice the skills that we have been able to acquire during our stay in the United States. We traveled with our 3 children. At that time, they were 8 years old, the oldest, and a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. So life in the United States wasn't easy, and I couldn't wait to come back home. I don't know, many people love, and wish to go to America, but there are some of us who are not made, for that life. And here we find our comfort zone, and we find our calling is to work, in Kenya. I always tell people there's the most beautiful country in the world, and I have traveled a lot, no less than 20 countries. I have never found a place more beautiful than Kenya. Where do you find the ocean, and where you can, that's in Mombasa. Then you are able to find the mountains, Mount Kenya, and other smaller mountains and hills. You still have a Rift Valley. Then you have many lakes starting from Naivasha all the way to Lake Victoria. Where do you find a climate like we have in Kenya? There's not always focus on what we don't have, but what we have is great. So whenever you travel out there and it is winter, it's cold, or even the summer it's so hot, then you remember home is best, and really I really encourage even those who go, if they can come back with skills. It's important to come back with skills, come back with a plan, how you are going to settle back, in Kenya. But I do really love my country. I love, the countryside. I travel quite a lot, to Nyeri, that's where, my Gishagi, and I love every bit, of Kenya. The beauty about our coming back and how we were able to settle down easily is that it was a decision that we had made before we left Kenya, that we will go, we'll study, we'll pick all the best that we can pick in terms of knowledge, and we will, because we wanted to come back and practice cardiology, we used any resources that we got, through part-time work as we studied, to purchase equipment. So we came back armed with equipment for diagnosis of heart problems. So we were ready to set up, our own private practice, and we started in Nairobi, in what we call our Nairobi Heart Clinic. And our children, when we came back, now they were still in primary school, so we were able to settle them in a primary school, public primary school in Nairobi, which where they had come, the same school, which they were already in before we left. And so having settled the children, started a practice. The next job was to work very hard, work really hard to make sure that since we had made a decision, to go into private practice, then we had to make sure that we have rent for the, we have food on the table, we have school fees for the children, and God's favor was upon us, and we were able, to grow the clinic, the Nairobi Heart Clinic, which we worked for 20 years. However, faith, there's something that God had planted in us when we were in Minnesota, and that is the plan to start a hospital. Now, one asks, you are training and you are thinking about starting a hospital. Well, Minneapolis is a very cold city, so you spend a lot of time indoors, when you're not, studying. And so we had time to say, what shall we do when we get back home? And we said, we will build a hospital. And, it was an audacious, a dream. But it's good to dream, even for things that seem, out of reach at the particular time, that at the God's given time, all will come together. And it took 20 years from the time we came back to the time we actually got to open the current hospital doors to the public in 2006. During that time, I put it in very clearly in my book, it was an uphill task, trying to look for funds, trying to look for investors, and banks that are willing to lend money, for us to put up our hospital. Looking for land, where are you going to build? Because we really, apart from now, the home that we had, we didn't have any piece of land, for this big dream that we had. But we tried to get other people, our friends, doctors, others were lawyers, even there was one who was a pastor, to come and be, form the first board, and think through how is it that we can put a specialist, a hospital, an African, team coming together to put up a hospital. And there's always a lot of goodwill amongst our people, but sometimes the goodwill does not translate into, actual cash. So after trying very hard, for a very long time, as I said, it took about, over 20 years, finally one bank came through, and that was Kenya Commercial Bank, and they provided a loan for the building of the hospital as well as equipping it. So that was a major breakthrough that some of these things you look back and say, only God could have allowed us to, because it's too much for two villagers. My husband, Dan, is no different from me in terms of his background. He has come from a village, he went to Kagumo High School, and so where do these villagers, think, how do they think that they can put up a hospital? But you see, you get out of the village, and although they say the village never gets out of you, I think the village does get out of you, and you move on to your next, destination, and you keep on, trying, to climb that mountain, scaling the height, from the bottom, a little bit at a time. Don't try to fly like your generation. You need to climb it. You need to feel the stones and feel the plants and feel the weather, but so that you finally, with a lot of, prayer, and trusting in God that what He has put in your heart, it will come to fruition. And so Current Hospital, came to be. But before the Current Hospital came to be, the Heart to Heart Foundation, in 1993, we registered a medical charity, the Heart to Heart Foundation. And why did we register this? It was out of need, to assist children from needy families, who had heart problems and required heart surgery. And these children, most of the times, children are born of young parents who, and if there's a heart problem, it's devastating because one, they have no medical insurance, because medical insurance the commercial ones do not cover problems that you are born with. They are called congenital. So that's one problem. And a lot of these children also came from low socioeconomic background. So during my practice from 1986 to 1993, as a children heart specialist, I had to travel very many times, to Britain, to the US. I even traveled to Italy, looking for hospitals where my good friends, doctors were, who could operate on these children gratis. And it is during these travels that the idea came. Why not try and get these children be treated here? The problem was always about money. So we started the Heart to Heart Foundation. One is to fundraise, for the children, but also to put together a team, because there already existed heart surgeon, Dr. Kariuki, ourselves. There was Dr. Kisia, who was an anesthetist. So the whole team was there, and ourselves as Dr. Dan and I as cardiologists. The team was there, but what we did not have was the facility to operate and the money, to buy the gadgets that are required. So the Heart to Heart Foundation was born out of a need, and now the Heart to Heart, and it assists children from needy families to access heart surgery, but also does training, for medical teams, both in the rural and city areas, to understand how they can prevent, some of the heart diseases that these children come with. We find that there's one problem called rheumatic heart disease, which can be prevented. It's caused mainly by sore throat, that has not been properly treated with penicillin. So we teach, about prevention and treating these sore throats early so that they do not, become heart disease. Somebody asked, how does a sore throat become heart disease? The truth is, sore throats, bacterial sore throats, can become heart disease because as the body tries to fight the infection, it fights its own heart valves and they become damaged and they require to be replaced. So the Heart to Heart Foundation, founded in 1993, is celebrating, its 30 years. And 30 years, over 600 children, from needy families have been able to be operated locally, and of course now, because it's such a long time, many of them are family members. They have their own families, and I have had the pleasure of taking care of the children, from these young, initially young patients who are now, have their own families. There's no bigger, a pleasure that you can derive, from this profession and to see the results, of healing. So the Heart to Heart Foundation is one of the impactful, projects that we have actually been able, to undertake with Dr. Dan Gikonyo, and we have not only treated the over 600, but we have trained over 10,000 health workers. And we feel that, and we continue to train up to today. Now we are training teachers because they are always with children. So we are doing teachers workshops, which we do, and we continue to fundraise through the Heart Run that goes on. It's coming now in June, the Heart Run. We have just finished the teachers workshops, for training them on prevention and also taking them about their own health, because they also need to be healthy. So there is great impact, of the Heart to Heart Foundation over the years. come 2006, we opened the current hospital. Now, with all the history I've given you, one of the things that, excuse me, one of the things that I would say has been, of great impact, one is the ability to provide highly specialized medical services in our country by our, local, doctors. That is both in cardiology, whether in cancer treatment, in cases of digestive system. Of course, there is a case of obesity that has now crept in, and there are medical treatments for that. We have, a dialysis center that takes care of kidney diseases. And of course, an ICU and theaters. I just want to highlight the fact that current hospital is not just for treatment of heart diseases. It has a maternity. It has a children's unit. So we are taking care of holistic, and we are very grateful and happy to just to be able to share that it's a level 6 hospital. And being a level 6 hospital, we are not only treating and train both surgical and non-surgical problems, but we are also training. Training is very, very important, because we must continue to replicate ourselves to ensure that in the future, when we cannot be working, there are others who will be working. So we are a recognized center for training of interns, doctors, when they come straight from the university before they are registered as doctors. We are recognized for COSEXA, which is training of surgeons for Eastern and Central Africa. We are recognized for training of physicians. That is now people who treat who treat people now for high blood pressure, arthritis, and others. We are also a recognized center for training cardiologists, and we have actually already graduated our first cardiologist, but we also have cardiologists in training. So the hospital is a training center for doctors, completely separate from the next training service that I want to just let you into in terms of impact. What is it that? Because continuously we have thought, how can we, with the knowledge we have, with a facility like this, continue to fill in that gap of manpower for health, which is something that, and I'm happy that many doctors now don't have to go abroad. They can be trained locally here in Karen Hospital and in other hospitals and in universities. Before we opened the Karen Hospital, we were running outreach clinics. One was in Nyeri, Madari Hospital. So we wanted to find a home for that one, within, so that because it was in a rather, difficult location to access, for the patients, especially in the evening or early morning. So we thought, why don't we get a place in Nyeri town where these heart patients who we are already taking care of, can be coming to, which is more convenient. So we thought about it, and we didn't really look at it as expansion at that time. We thought as creating convenience for that outreach clinic. But so we got our premises, and we started, a general clinic, but a general clinic that, every month, we would have the outreach to take care of heart patients. So that proved to be very popular, with the local people, because now, apart from the ones that we are looking at in Madari, now others started coming. In the moment they knew that a heart specialist is coming on board, is coming regularly here, and they were happy, that, and especially, a lot of heart problems are in the elderly, retirees, and people's parents. And therefore, people would say, I would rather go pick my parents, take them to the Nyeri clinic, and then take them back to their normal, their their regular location, because most elderly people don't want to come to Nairobi. They don't want to stay in Nairobi, and it's not convenient for them. So it turned out to be, something that we had not anticipated. The growth was phenomenal, and we realized that we are solving a problem beyond what we had set out. And so with that, we were encouraged, and we started, now thinking, why don't we, have a branch like that in Meru? Why don't we have a branch like that in Nakuru? Why don't we have a branch, And once we started, creating this, we found that they were self-supporting, because it's a fully fledged medical center with a doctor, with nurses, the laboratory, with a pharmacy, with the X-ray, and even physiotherapy in some of them. So it's a mini hospital. It only happens to be outpatient. So that's what initially drove the first clinic, and thereafter we found that we were serving, a population that really needed, the service brought to them, rather than them having to come to Nairobi. Yeah. So we are happy that, we have those 8 branches. We pray that we can, continue to increase, the expansion, to other counties, and be able to take the services of the current hospital, to a wider population, beyond the city. I can only thank God, for, because we read, and it's a fact that before we were formed in our mother's wombs, God knew, it was predestined that we will be who we are. But it's never revealed to us. So as I was running my errands, going to draw water from the river and going to get firewood, and saying that I want to be a doctor, I didn't have much concept as to really what a doctor does. As I walked the journey, in primary school, high school, yes, I had still this vision, and I thank God that my dream to become a doctor was actualized. I still, was walking the path, of I want to be a doctor, but as to what I will eventually be, I was thinking about being a doctor, practicing in a hospital, because that's what I had seen. I had not seen anybody who is with a private practice or anybody building a hospital. So my mind is, I can say, and I think it's the truth, is that you are limited to the exposure you have at that particular time. As you get more and more exposed, then your vision, grows, and the things that you see, the possibilities increase. So I can only say it was meant to be, but not lightly. It's something like I cannot, take lightly the little Betty, Modoni, out there in the village, to the chairman of the current hospital, and the fact that superintending over, the main hospital and 8 branches, over 400 full-time employees and 100 part-time employees, the training that we are doing. I can only say God knew all this, but He does not reveal it to us. And it's just as well He doesn't. Otherwise, probably, we may think it is us who have done it. So I think that's the message I try to pass, that wherever you are and whatever you do, have a dream, have a vision. That's what now, your generation would say. Have a vision of where you want to be, what you want to do, and be, trust God that it will happen. As you trust God, make sure that you work very hard. It has taken a lot of hard work. It really has not been easy. It may look now easy to an outsider, but the struggles continue. They never end, because we move from one level, of function to another level, and with each level, it has its own challenges. Then remember that there will be problems along the way. And at these problems, yes, you have to, to face them, and look for solutions. And the solutions sometimes lie within you, sometimes they lie within other people, and the others lie within institutions like the bank, because, there's no way we would have raised the money to put up this hospital. Working hard, knowing that there will be challenges, but being persistent, and never giving up. Just that element of not giving up, because faith, it has not been an easy journey, and it's still not easy. However, I would like to look at the positive, what has been achieved and what the impact has been, and not dwell too much on the problems. But I don't want anybody to go out there thinking it has been a walk in the park. No. Or whether it is, working, and as I talk to the students, whether it is in primary school, that child has to work hard. Whether it's in high school, one has to work hard. You get to university and you're a student, medical student. It's a lot of reading, a lot of sacrifices. Then you go, you travel, to places like we did with children. You just can't imagine how difficult life is out there compared to here. There's no help. You don't have your mother or auntie or anybody to go back to. So there'll be challenges. So hard work. I can't emphasize how important that hard work, but knowing that this hard work will bear good fruit. But all the time trusting God and trusting that all will be well. I just want to emphasize is you become a source of help, for more people, and I think just as the Bible says, is more blessed to give than to receive. You do really feel blessed, when you give. So part of of all that we do is that at the end of the day, it will not be measured by what we accumulated for ourselves, but what impact we have in society. How many people did we help? How many children go to school because you are blessed? How many sick people who not necessarily who come to pay because they are through the Heart to Heart Foundation. You are helping those who now, as I mentioned earlier, are now parents. So there's how do I feel? I feel blessed. I thank God, for the gift of life. Up to the years that He has given me this much, and I thank God, for having given me the opportunity, to be Betty as the doctor, Betty the mother, Betty the wife, Betty the community person, and Betty is a friend to many, all these things, because we are not just a doctor, packaged as a doctor. We are many things, to many people. So at the end of the day, and when all is said and done, it will be what impact and how far did your impact go, and with what God has given you, because each of us have been given, just like the 10 talents, some are given 5, others are given 10, and there are those who are given 2. Yes, I think one of my greatest, one of my highest moments was way back in 1993, when we started the open heart surgery program. As I said, when we came back, we really wanted to practice what we had practiced, what we had learned in the US. So the team of Dr. Dan Gikonyo Adai, Dr. Kariuki, Dr. Kisia, and Dr. Professor Zipporah Gumi, amongst others, had a child, let me not mention her name, but she was a 5-year-old, who now was to undergo heart surgery. It was our first open heart surgery, after we came back, from the US, conducted by our entire African team, and on this young girl. And we really were very anxious, as we prepared for it. We were very anxious as it was going on. We were in theater, so in theater we were, all had our fingers crossed. We prayed we prayed, God, let it be successful. So when the young lady, young child, it came, what we say, the chest was closed because the heart surgery had been successful. We were able to take the child to ICU. Within no time, she woke up, and and we were able to tell the parents the surgery has been successful. I think in 1993, it was October. I still remember. That was one of my highest moments, and that was really our very first child to sponsor under the Heart to Heart Foundation. So now she's a mother, she's a graduate, she's a psychologist, and she does come to Karen Hospital, and recently I met her parents, who are then young, but now all of us have aged over the years. So talk about high moment. That was really the highest moment, in my medical career. Now, the low moments have been many, because, medical career, unlike what the public think that doctors get used to, losing their patients, we never get used to. Nobody ever gets used to, you are talking to somebody, you've been discussing and planning, and you have given them your best, and you still lose them. So my lowest moment was I had traveled with a child to Britain, for heart surgery. That was now in the late 80s. As I told you, when we came back, there was no heart surgery happening in the country. I was still making diagnoses. That's what I had learned, and we had the equipment, but we were not having the heart surgery locally. So I was traveling with these children, but I traveled with very many. But there's this one, where it was a young couple. It was their first child, and we were very hopeful, that it was one of the best hospitals in UK, that that we had traveled to. The family, was able, to pay for the surgery, but so it was not an issue of, a needy patient necessarily, but the fact that the surgery was not available in Kenya. So we had gone very hopeful, and the child went to surgery, and unfortunately, she did not. The baby did not make it. You get very much attached to the whole family. We had traveled even with the grandmother. So now, the grandmother is there, the mother, the father, and I am there as a doctor. So now I flip, from being a doctor to being a counselor, to being the person to start organizing, what do we do, because we need to get, to do the final rites, for this baby, outside the country, and yes, I have lost patients. I can't say that's the only patient I've lost, but really, it was early in my career, so probably I was even more vulnerable, and that really devastated me. Obviously, the parents were very devastated, and the grandmother. But on my own part, I was feeling hopeless, because now, as I say, my role from being a doctor is now I have to organize for, for the final rights for this child. So that was really, and the fact that it was outside the country, probably made it even more painful, because we were very hopeful that we'd come back, with a child who have amended heart, I might put it that way. I think it's very important for people to understand that in the midst of all this, I'm a mother. A mother, as I said, of 3 children, and I'm also a wife. And therefore, I have the same responsibilities, as any other mother has, and, I was, you start as a medical doctor, you are required to be 24 hours available, but you still have your babies, at home who are also, waiting for you and needing your attention. So the bit of being the life of trying, the ability to make, to be an effective doctor, as well as to be an effective, mother, is really a challenge. And people have asked me many times, how did you balance, your time? How did you, how are you able, would you say that you are able to take care of your children in the midst of all these other demands? I would say, yes, I did my best, and to mix, my 2 careers, as I call them, the career of parenthood and the career of medicine. And it wasn't easy, but I say there's this expression of quality time, the expression of enough time. I say I took it by the stride. There was a day that I was not called to the hospital in the night. There's a week that you are called consistently, and you go, and then you're coming early in the morning, and those days Kenya was safer. You could drive, all the way to Gertrude's Children's Hospital. But being a parent and also, being, a specialist doctor in my area where we were very few, was very challenging, and I say only by grace of God, that, I was able, to do my best. I always say do my best, under the circumstances. It caught me by surprise when I saw my name, because I was shown by my fellow Rotarians of the Rotary Club of Karen, that, oh, Betty, your name is amongst the nominees. And I said, nominees for what? Not that just sometimes you're skeptical, because, there's so much going on, and, of course, I learned that it's from a highly credible organization, like, Hope, FM, and with your partners. And, so I said, and I looked and I saw other women who have been nominated. I don't necessarily know all of them, but I could recognize 1 or 2. And I said, oh, well, I don't know who nominated me, but they must have had something that in the criteria that you are using. So how did I feel about it? I felt good. I think all of us, we are never, we are always happy, for recognition, and the recognition by a credible organization. So I being my age, the internet is something that, we can say it again, it's a challenge. So when you say it's internet-based, and there's voting to be done, and there are people to be, then I say, I leave it to God, and let the best woman, win this category of East African, the most influential woman in the healthcare space, in East Africa.
Wow, it has been such a wonderful conversation and a candid one right here with Dr. Betty Gikonyo. If you didn't know more about the hard work it took, now you know just a bit of her journey. She says to learn more about what she's done for almost 50 years now in the medical field, get her book, A Girl Who Dared to Dream. My name is Faith Kaulu. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Shivolution, a segment sponsored by the East African Women of Excellence Award. Just to vote for the women who have been nominated in the different categories, visit the website www.womenofexcellenceawards.co and vote for your favorite candidate. Till next time, goodbye.